What up, everybody? It's the Alex Leak and Friends NFL Podcast 2018 Offseason Week 6. Back for another week. I got the crew with me. I got David Stoyo in Canada.
What up, what up?
And I got Gavin Heslop in Oregon.
Hello.
And we got lots to talk about. We're going to start off with the competition committee meeting and producing some new rules that will go into effect in 2018. One of the new rules will allow teams to hire coaches whose team is still alive in the playoffs. The NFL is adamant that this is not the Josh McDaniels rule, but I'm going to go ahead and call it that anyway. Stoyo, do you think this is a good rule?
I mean, this is a Josh McDaniel rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good rule because you don't want to have what happened to Indy happen to everyone else. But I don't know. Usually, when you give someone your word that you're going to work somewhere, that should be it. But some people make it difficult.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a good rule. You don't want to see teams get screwed over like Indy, even though in the end I think they got the better coach. Gavin, do you like this rule? It could have probably helped your Lions out if you were able to talk to Patricia earlier.
Yeah, I'm not sure how big of a fan I am of it. I think that we might see very little change happen actually, because it doesn't seem to me like he would have necessarily signed beforehand, or he might have regretted it even. So I don't think that it's if coaches want to see how things play out, I think that they simply won't sign as early as they might have otherwise.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like how much will it actually affect how it changes, but I like that it gives you the option to hire the coach if he wants to make that decision, but it could put the coaches in a difficult spot or get them distracted in the playoffs.
I don't think it's going to add distraction, though. I mean, if people think that Patricia and the Lions weren't talking beforehand,
phone disconnected.
I think that's pretty ignorant to think that didn't happen. And McDaniels, we heard for weeks leading up that he was going to sign with the Colts, and while he didn't end up signing, like he had promised them that he would. So I wouldn't say that means that he hadn't been talking beforehand. I think he just changed his mind.
Yeah, I hear you. Another rule that the NFL makes, they changed the rule that no player can lead with the crown of the helmet. If they do, it's a personal foul and a 15-yard penalty. I saw this coming from a mile away. It's not really breaking news to me. It never really made sense that the offensive player could use his helmet as a weapon and could go low and hit a defensive player, and the defensive player couldn't do it back to him. Thought that was one-sided. A guy that we saw do this often was Adrian Peterson. Would put his head down and run over players. So now no one can do it, and you can still make a dive tackle. You just can't make contact with your helmet. Be more fundamentally sound and lead with the shoulder. And I think it's a good rule change that will help perfect the tackle, the fundamental tackle. Stoyo, do you like this rule?
I do like this rule. It's supposed to make the game safer.
Yeah.
But at some point, maybe they'll even remove the helmets.
Yeah.
So
I hope not.
I hope not either, but that could be down the road if they still want to make football a safer sport.
Yeah, and I think it's just more emphasis. I mean, this has always been talked about, but now it's an official rule. Like, you're not supposed to lead with the crown of your helmet. You're not supposed to dip your head down. And I think they want to put emphasis on it, especially with what happened to Ryan Shazier and then guys like Cam Chancellor and Cliff Averill just this last season. Lots of major injuries, so you got to cut that down. Gavin, what do you think of this rule change?
Yeah, I think it's a fair rule change. That one type of player should be able to do this and not the other. Didn't seem logical, so I think this is the right move for sure.
Yeah. Yep. And then the third rule change, and maybe the most important, the NFL addresses the catch rule. Now it's the three prerequisites to a catch is control plus 2 feet down or elbow or knee, and then a football move, whether that's reaching out to the end zone or trying to get more yardage. It's those three factors combined, and in short, it will make the Calvin Johnson, Des Bryant, and Jesse James catches now count as an actual catch. Stoyo, do you like this decision to address the catch rule?
Absolutely, this rule was needed to be fixed a long time ago. The last few seasons have been ridiculous. You basically have to challenge a lot of catches and just hope and see what happens, what the refs are going to call. And hopefully this will be fixed. Sometimes it'll be harder to define what a football move is, but I think a lot of more catches are going to be made and upheld correctly. And also would like to add that Zach Miller had a touchdown overturned last season that was awful,
Yeah.
which under the new rule would have been a catch.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that they're heading in the right direction to fix it, and it's good for the game to uh, make it more clear what is and isn't a catch. Gavin, do you like this new rule?
Absolutely. The most important thing that affected is now that, in my mind, the Bears lost that game and the Lions won it. So critical change there. But
another moral victory for Detroit.
Hey, we got to take what we can, especially if it comes at the expense of anything Chicago. But I think this is the obvious right move to make. It was funny, one of the reports I saw, it didn't specify the knee or an elbow. It said any body part. So I was waiting for someone to control the ball with their hands, land on their head, and then lose possession, and then see how the officials dealt with that. But I am interested to see what is going to come of this. There's going to be some call that's going to be really questionable because of the discrepancy between what is and what isn't a football move.
Yeah.
It's not that it's vague, but it's not as black and white as the old rule was. And so there's going to be something that happens this year, and it's the whole reason that the original rule came into place. Was a catch by a Raiders receiver whose name I certainly can't remember now, but so it'll be interesting to see what happens that makes people hate the new rule in 2018.
Yeah, I think the one thing I like about it is it shortens the span of what a catch should be. The whole going to the ground thing and all that, you could take 3 to 4 steps going to the ground and then they're going to call it incomplete. I just didn't like that, and I thought that it hurt players trying to make a play, trying to score a touchdown. It hurt them when they're trying to make the game better and trying to do good on the field. So I think it's a good rule, and hopefully it fixes the game for the better. Big news in the NFC West: free agent defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh signs a 1-year deal worth $14 million to join the Rams, and he'll be joining that line alongside reigning Defensive Player of the Year Aaron Donald. So that should be a beast defensive line, and to go with Wade Phillips at defensive coordinator. Stoyo, what do you think of this move? That's going to be a crazy defense in LA.
Absolutely. That's the best news that Aaron Donald could have heard in a long time.
Yeah.
This is going to be a sick defensive line, and definitely the Rams are going to be a contender, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that run-stopping defense. It's going to be crazy. I mean, Gavin, if you're game planning to go against this defense, who are you double-teaming, Aaron Donald or Ndamukong Suh?
Yeah, that's going to be tough. I think it'll be interesting to see what position Suh plays in this defense. They have Michael Brockers as well that plays in the 3-4 on the line. And so you've got Donald, who's somewhere around 280, 285, depending on who you ask, and then Brockers and Suh both being just over 300. So you don't have your prototypical 3-technique nose tackle, just the fattest dude on the team. So, but it will be really interesting to see these guys that have the athletic ability that Donald and Suh have, rushing from the inside or the outside.
Yeah, like you said, no Vince Wilfork in LA, but those guys are athletes for that size, and that's gonna be fun to watch. To go with, you got those guys on the middle, and then you got those corners, Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters out there. It's gonna be tough to get yards on that LA defense. Um, the Colts signed running back Kristen Michael to their roster. The Raiders signed safety Reggie Nelson to a 1-year deal and bring in backup quarterback EJ Manuel. Another big trade. The Giants trade defensive end Jason Pierre-Paul and a 4th-round pick to the Tampa Bay Bucks for 3rd and 4th-round picks. The Bucks originally tried to trade for Robert Quinn, the defensive end on the Rams, but he was shipped to Miami. ESPN analyst and former NFL scout Louis Riddick says he considers NC State defensive end Bradley Chubb to be a better overall prospect than last year's number 1 overall pick Myles Garrett, and believes that the Giants should pick Chubb with the number 2 overall pick. First of all, Stoyo, do you like this Jason Pierre-Paul trade for Tampa Bay?
Yeah, absolutely. I think JPP is a good player that had an unfortunate injury, but I think he still has plenty left in the tank, and Tampa is trying to rebuild that defense or improve that defense.
Yeah, and Tampa needs to get more pressure on the quarterback, so this should help. Gavin, you think Pierre-Paul's a good fit in the Tampa Bay defense?
Yeah, I think that any decent defensive lineman is a good fit for the Tampa Bay defense.
Yeah.
They need any sort of upgrade they can get. The only good player they have on that line is injured all the time. So it'll be interesting to see how Gerald McCoy and Jason Pierre-Paul stack up.
Yeah.
Pierre-Paul still got 8 sacks this last season, so he's still productive. He's not, it's not his most productive season where he was getting into the mid-double digits, but still can be effective coming off the edge and take some pressure off of the rest of the guys on their team.
Yeah, good get for Tampa Bay. I hope that it improves their defense. And Gavin, what do you think of what Louis Riddick said? Do you think, the Giants are sitting at number 2, and I think a lot of people thought they might take Josh Rosen or Saquon Barkley. Do you think that taking Bradley Chubb at number 2 would be a reach?
I don't know that it wouldn't be a reach, but it wouldn't be. You don't trade up for a defensive end, not to the 2nd overall spot.
Yeah.
Not in this day's draft. You trade up for a quarterback. I would be shocked if they didn't take a QB at that position. There's even been some rumors that they've been in talks with the Browns for trading up into the number 1 spot, pulling a Chicago Bears and
going up one spot.
A dumb trade.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Jets traded up there too, and so who knows? It wouldn't surprise me if the top 3 picks were quarterbacks, but who knows? We'll see how it shakes down. Stoyo, do you think that the Giants should take a defensive end, or are you in the camp thinking they should take a quarterback with an aging Eli Manning?
I'm gonna go a different route. I would pick a guard.
Oh, really?
I would go with Quentin Nelson as number 2.
Yeah.
Because the new Giants GM believes that Eli has a few years left in the tank, and they just got him a brand new left tackle. You get him Nelson, and all of a sudden you have one of the best left side of the line in football.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree that. I'm big on Quentin Nelson. I hope he doesn't go that high, and I hope he drops to number 8 so he can come to Chicago. The Eagles signed. They get a couple wide receivers for Carson Wentz. They bring in Jeremy Maclin and Mike Wallace, both on 1-year deals. Gavin, do you like these veteran receivers coming in to Philly?
Yeah, I do like them. I think that both receivers still have some talent, some left in the tank, but I think that they actually downgrade from. I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but I think that Mike Wallace is actually a downgrade from Torrey Smith. Both receivers really just known for their speed ability, and Mike Wallace is 1 year older, than he was last year. Profound thing there, but
well, he is getting older though. He's slowing down.
Right, yeah, he's getting, and it's not that he just turned 25 from 24. I think I don't remember, he's got to be pushing 30,
Yeah.
early 30s. So I think that you're looking at a guy that has likely lost the speed element that was a key part of his game. So instead of having a fast receiver that drops a lot of balls, you have a medium speed receiver that drops a lot of balls.
Yeah.
So, but I think that in the wake of losing Torrey Smith, you have to do something and make sure that your quarterback has weapons next year. So, good to bring some veterans in, and kind of exciting to see Macklin back in Philly.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot that he was drafted there. Macklin's a good fit in Philly. I was surprised they got rid of him when they did. Um, Stoyo, do you like these moves? Bring the two veteran receivers, and do you think that they can equal or get close to the production that Torrey Smith brought?
Yeah, Mike Wallace is coming off a 750-yard season
Mm-hmm.
at the age of 31. He still has something left in the tank. Macklin has had a rough couple of years and probably wishes he would have came back to Philly a year earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not terrible ads. I wouldn't say they're great either. I think it's a decent move, but nothing to brag home about.
Yeah. Yep. Just trying to bring in pieces. We'll see how it all shakes out. The Packers bring back veteran corner Tramon Williams on a 2-year deal worth $10 million. To be honest, I had forgotten that Tramon Williams was still in the league, but I looked it up and he was on the Cardinals last year, recorded 39 tackles, 12 passes defensed, and 2 interceptions in 13 games with the Cardinals. That shows how much Cardinals football I watched. Um, Gavin, bringing back Tramon Williams, is that a good move for Green Bay?
Yeah, I think it's always good for an organization like Green Bay to bring back players that are part of their system and had been for a while. He still showed that he has some talent. He is going to be 35 though, so definitely some age concerns there. But they didn't sign him for a huge deal, so I think that was a smart move by the Packers, especially in the wake of losing their best cornerbacks so far this offseason.
Yeah, they got to replace those guys they lost. Stoyo, do you think that it's a good move by Green Bay, and are you excited to have Tramon Williams back in the division?
Anything Green Bay does is awful and dumb, so I don't know what to tell you.
Yep, exactly. The Cowboys signed wide receiver Allen Hurns to a 2-year deal and bring in wide receiver Deontay Thompson on a 1-year deal. They're also expected to keep Dez Bryant. And the Cowboys also restructure tight end Jason Witten's contract, freeing up $3.5 million in cap space. The Cowboys also signed tackle Cameron Fleming on a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. And that means that the Patriots will be losing both of their starting tackles from 2017, with Solder going to the Giants and Fleming to the Cowboys. Gavin, Hearns and Cameron Fleming and Deontay Thompson, are those good ads for Dallas?
I don't know for sure. Like I'm not really super excited about the last two, but Hearns, it's unclear exactly how much talent he has. He did have a couple good years in Jacksonville, but they were also years when Blake Bortles was living off of garbage time, where team defenses didn't care about guarding the other team. So I think there's definitely some potential there. They need a number 2 receiver. They have for a while there in Dallas. So I think that assuming they're keeping Dez Bryant, they're hoping that he can turn into a number 2 threat for their young quarterback. But I still think that they need to address that position in the draft this year.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, at this point, they're saying that they're going to keep Dez Bryant. Do you still consider Dez Bryant a number 1 option? I mean, I think if you look at the stats, you could say that Switzer or one of those guys might be Dallas's number 1 option.
I think he's definitely the number 1 option on their team and the best option that they can get, so far. I think that they, they could address that in the draft, but it doesn't mean they need to get rid of Dez necessarily. The rookie will be coming in on a young contract, and Dez is getting up there in age, so they can let that contract play out and groom this guy to be their number one.
Yeah. Stoyo, do you think that these are good moves? And on Undisputed, Skip Bayless said that if he was running the Cowboys, he would release Dez Bryant and keep the money and build around the team. Do you think that would be a smart move, or do you like hanging on to him?
I would hang on to him. I'm not in love with hanging on to him, but he is the best option that they have.
Yeah.
And he's probably going to be the best option for the next season or so. But I believe this is going to be Dez's last year in Dallas, but he has one more year there.
Yeah.
And even if you draft someone, the Cowboys are probably going to be in the low bottom half of the draft, and I don't think you're going to find a true number one there.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Gavin, what do you think of the Patriots losing both their starting tackles from last season?
That is, I think, really concerning. It should be for Patriots fans. They're picking very low in the draft, seeing that they went to the Super Bowl. So they're not going to have the luxury of picking one of the top tier offensive linemen unless they trade away, the rest of their draft, which is not the Bill Belichick way. So I think it should be concerning, but also what isn't a concern is that Belichick is still their head coach and has been known to turn players into stars that weren't able to thrive elsewhere. And this could be a real testament to the greatness of Tom Brady.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they address it. Stoyo, losing both your starting left tackles is never a great way to go through free agency. You think they definitely have to address that and protect their star aging quarterback Tom Brady. What do you think of the Patriot moves here?
Yeah, they definitely need to do something. It's not ideal to lose your starting left tackle, and Brady's not getting any younger.
Yeah.
So you need to find a solution. As Gavin mentioned, they do have Bill Belichick, who has managed to get the most talent and results out of a lot of players. But yeah, I don't know if you want to really trade up to get a good tackle or just find a bargain in the third, fourth, or fifth round. But you have to do something. Tom Brady is old now, an old man. And you saw him run in the Super Bowl trying to catch a ball, and it wasn't pretty. So as great as Tom Brady is, he needs to be protected.
Yeah. And if I were Brady, I'd stick to quarterback. I wouldn't pursue a wide receiver career at this point. Speaking of the Patriots, they re-signed linebacker Marquise Flowers to a one-year deal worth $2.5 million. And New England safety Daron Harmon was denied entry into Costa Rica and sent back to the United States after Customs found 58 grams of marijuana inside a can of iced tea. I would say a thing of Gatorade doesn't work very well either. He was not arrested, and Harmon apologized via Instagram to the Patriots and their fans. Gavin, what do you think of the Daron Harmon story?
I don't know what people are thinking, how they try and smuggle in their paraphernalia in different means. They've got their football players. They've got to have different ways, smarter ways, or they got to know people that are smarter than they are when it comes to these sorts of things. So
yeah,
I would I'd be interested to see. I'll be surprised if he's still on the team. I don't feel like this is much of the Patriot way.
Yeah.
It doesn't show smarts for a couple reasons. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. Stoyo, what do you make of it?
Is there no weed in Costa Rica? Do you really need to bring your own?
Yeah, seriously.
And you need to have almost 60 grams of weed on you. That is a lot of weed.
Yeah.
And what are you doing as a professional player doing that?
Yeah,
I don't get it. I mean, especially when you're on the Patriots. Like, if you're on the Bengals, you can get away with more and stuff like that. But on the Patriots, you just don't do that. And I don't know, you just can't. I can't do that. I don't know what goes through your mind. And as a professional athlete, and you're like, oh yeah, let me fly over to a different country where there's shit ton of weed, and we'll see what happens.
yeah. I don't
You
get
just
the.
have to make better decisions.
Yeah, exactly. I don't get the decision making. You're the NFL star. Maybe have a friend carry it for you, or someone else. Don't have it on your person. If you have to take it with you, and why can't you find some in Costa Rica? I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking. Um, but it seems to be, it's the off season, and players get in a little more trouble then. Speaking of that, Bills wide receiver Zay Jones is arrested in a LA apartment building after being caught on a hallway camera in a bloody naked confrontation with his brother Vikings wide receiver Caleb Jones. There was blood on the walls and floors and of the hallway, and a glass window was kicked in, and Zay Jones was heard screaming "Fight for Jesus," and was arrested moments later on a felony vandalism charge. Not sure what's going on there. Bit of a crazy story. The Bills and the NFL are reviewing the incident, and the good news for Zay is that the charges have been dropped due to a lack of evidence, and Jones has agreed to pay for the damages, which came to $20,000. Um, Zay Jones caught 27 passes for 316 yards and 2 touchdowns in 2017, his rookie season. And I believe he has a bright future in the league. I think he's a good talent and can turn into a star or a pretty decent wide receiver. And I think we all hope that this is a one-time occurrence and not something that teams will have to deal with in the future. Gavin, what do you make of the Zay Jones story here?
Yeah, it is a shame to see a player who is so young and was expected to be really integral part of the Bills' offense this year, especially at the beginning of the season when they had lost Sammy Watkins and hadn't gotten Kelvin Benjamin yet. So
Yeah.
I know that there's definitely some hype around him, going into the season, but didn't amount to much. But they also didn't have a pass-happy offense with Tyrod Taylor there as the starting QB. So now with whoever their starting guy is, whether it's McCarron or the rookie that they draft, it's a shame that he might not have the opportunity to play this full season out and get that learning experience. But congratulations to Caleb Jones, though, for being in the news for the first time probably in his professional career.
Yeah, I was like, oh,
I sure hadn't heard of it.
he's got a brother in the league. That's cool. Yeah, I hope that the Bills rally around him and support him and help him out. I'm not sure what was going on in this story, but like I said, I believe in Zay Jones, and I hope that he gets a second chance and can prove that this was an aberration. What do you think, Stoyo?
Yeah, it was just an odd video to
Yeah.
watch, and it's hard to tell what was going on, if he had a manic episode or if he was on drugs.
That's
I
what
don't
I was
know.
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, you just need to get the help that you need if you're struggling with mental health, and if it's a drug issue, don't do the drugs when you're an athlete. And I hope he gets it together. It's a little bit shameful to have that online, but
Yeah.
hopefully he gets to keep his job. And maybe this is some kind of CTE related thing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it was definitely not something you want to see.
Yeah.
Quite disturbing.
Yeah. Just a different kind of story, and hopefully it's not something that happens again with him. The Eagles, we all thought that they would possibly move on from Nick Foles and Nick Foles would get a payday, but it looks like he's going to return to the Eagles as their backup quarterback in 2018. Head coach Doug Peterson says, quote, Nick understands this is Carson's team and he's going to support him in every way he can. Um, Gavin, what do you make of the Eagles hanging on to Nick Foles? Smart move?
Absolutely the smart move. I'm sure that they, if they weren't entertaining any trade options, they would if they came through. But they also know the value of having a good backup quarterback. I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but I'm assuming that Foles does not have a very high paycheck coming every week.
Yeah.
And when you see backup QBs getting signed to, $3-4+ million a year, and if Foles is getting the same and also Super Bowl MVP, you don't give that up for pennies. So a smart move on their part to hold on to him. And I don't expect him to finish out the year on Philadelphia, though, assuming that Wentz is able to stay healthy.
Yeah, and I would have thought that with so quarterbacks being in such demand, they would have gotten a better trade offer or a better offer for Nick Foles. But yeah, I agree. If you don't get the right offer, then hang on to him. You can't get a better backup on your team to go with already who was a MVP candidate, Carson Wentz. Do you like this move for the Eagles, Stoyo?
Yeah, especially when Carson Wentz got hurt. It was late in the season, so we're not even sure if Carson's going to be ready to play Week 1.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So for me, I would keep him for sure. And I think they shopped him around, but they wanted a first-round pick at least, and no one was willing to give up that for him, which I get.
Yeah.
And his cap hit is not the worst. It's going to be $6 million next season. So it's definitely manageable, especially if there's question marks around your franchise QB's health at the moment.
Yeah, they've got a rookie deal on Wentz, so they can afford to pay a slightly higher price for a backup QB than most other teams. So
Yeah.
I think we may even see him still move this offseason, but it'll come after the draft. People won't make trades until they know what they can get in the draft. I don't think now that the other free agent QBs have been signed. I think some of it was bad timing for the Eagles because there were so many quarterbacks that were at least considered to be potential starters, as free agents this year.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely a busy offseason for quarterbacks, so got to be a smart move for Philly. And if the right deal comes along, then move them, but don't just move them to move them. So, the Cardinals trade tackle Jared Valdir to the Broncos for a 6th-round pick, and all indications are pointing to they're going to go ahead with DJ Humphries as their starting left tackle. Moving on from a veteran, and the Broncos bring in a good solid offensive lineman. The Gents bring in wide receiver Terrell Pryor and are expected to sign wide receiver Andre Roberts. The Browns sign corner E.J. Gaines, reuniting him with his DC Greg Williams. And the Chiefs sign running back Damian Williams on a 1-year, $1.5 million deal, coming off of shoulder surgery, but he should be ready for training camp. Chargers defensive tackle Corey Liuget suspended for the first 4 games of the 2018 season. Stoyo, what do you make of this? Free agent tight end Martellus Bennett. He's only 31, announces retirement. In his career, he caught 433 catches for 4,573 yards and 30 touchdowns in his 10-year career. Do you think that Martellus Bennett is hanging up the jersey a little too early or a smart move?
Smart move. I wish he would retire about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had some good season, but there was always a lot more problems surrounding him than it should have. I think he could have lasted a little bit longer if he would have just kept his head down and played football, but he had, I don't know, he was kind of a headache, a locker room issue in Chicago.
Yeah.
Some questionable things happened in Green Bay that caused him to be released. He accused management of hiding an injury from him or something like that, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what's going on with the Bennett brothers, but I'm kind of getting sick of both of them. So
Yeah, the Bennett brothers are certainly in the news. Gavin, what do you think of Martellus Bennett hanging it up? I'm sure Green Bay wishes that he had done it maybe a year or two earlier.
Yeah, it is a shame. He is definitely a talented player, and it was a shame to see the issues that he faced throughout his career with various injuries and some uh, team mesh issues, not being able to mesh well with the teams. But he I think he'll be okay. If I think he's the one that's doing children's books.
Yep, that's what he retired to do.
Couldn't remember if it was him or his brother, but I think he's a smart guy, and he'll be able to survive just fine without all the headaches, literally and figuratively, that football will bring him.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the Bennett brothers, the other Bennett brother, Michael Bennett, newly acquired Philadelphia Eagle defensive end, is charged with a felony injury of an elderly woman while running onto the field after the Patriots and his brother won the Super Bowl in 2017. Um, the Houston police chief says Bennett told people he pushed, quote, you all know who I am. I can own this motherfucker. I'm going down to the field whether you like it or not, end quote. The police chief also says Bennett pushed a 66-year-old paraplegic on his way to the field and calls Bennett morally bankrupt. Also, there's no video as evidence of the incident. Michael Bennett's sister took a video of him running onto the field that shows no pushing incident, but the Houston PD says they have multiple witnesses. So we'll see how that goes. If you recall, last offseason, Bennett went after the Las Vegas PD, and this could at the very least, be retaliation over that incident. Who knows? I mean, it's not a good idea to piss off the police force. Either way, the Eagles can't be happy about the Michael Bennett era in Philly. Stoyo, what do you make of these charges against Michael Bennett?
If they're true, then they're bad allegations because who pushes a 66-year-old person?
Yeah.
But I don't know what to say. I wasn't there. I haven't seen the video. Who knows? But if I was the Bennett brothers, I would try to stay out of the limelight.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
I don't know what they're doing. It seems like there's a lot of things that happen during the off season, and I just cannot wait to get back to actual football.
I know.
All the off the field issues are just a headache for me, and I miss football. I don't care about what happens off the field, really, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Gavin? I don't know what to make of Michael Bennett in this, and it seems it's like a year later or more that these charges are coming out, but Houston PD seems to act like they have the proof.
Yeah, it's be interesting to see what comes of this. I'm curious why this is only coming out now. I mean,
Yeah.
this was supposedly happened 2 years ago, right?
The Super
a year
Bowl,
ago.
the Patriots won over Atlanta.
Yeah, a year ago. Yeah. So, it's kind of perplexing why this is only coming out now. I'm not hinting one way or the other. I know the legal process sometimes is full of red tape, but usually you can make allegations pretty darn quickly. So it's kind of perplexing why this would happen so long afterwards. But Bennett doesn't have. I don't feel like Bennett has a lot of credit with the media at this point after his last police run-in and
Yep.
how he lied about what happened, and video proved that to be the case. So I'm really confused. It doesn't make any sense. I was reading something about how in order for him to get charged with what he allegedly did, the malicious intent has to be involved. And so I don't, from the reports I did hear, it wasn't a malicious push. He wasn't trying to hurt her. He was simply trying to get to the field. Wasn't trying to hurt.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that will affect the charges at all. Certainly not justifying what he did, if he did it. but from a legal standpoint, my understanding is that this is that if I were a lawyer, which I am not, thank God, I would say that not much is going to come out of it.
Yeah, you make a good point, Gavin. I don't see Michael Bennett going out there and getting into a confrontation and angrily shoving an older lady. If anything, he's a big guy and he's running onto the field. Maybe he accidentally runs into her and pushes her over on accident. I mean, if it's an accident, should he be charged? I want to hear more about this. I mean, if he did it with intent, then it's definitely not good, but I find that hard to believe, and so we'll have to wait and see. We're going to have to get more facts on it. Speaking of the Seahawks, safety Earl Thomas says in a letter that he very much wants to return to Seattle and wants his jersey to be in the Ring of Honor with the other great Seahawks. These comments come after doubts of whether or not Earl wanted to be back, especially after his public chase down of Cowboys head coach Jason Garrett last season. I'm sure this is good news for Seattle fans, though, with after losing so many pieces already on defense this offseason. Stoyo, good news that Earl Thomas is coming back for the Seahawks.
I guess. I don't really buy what he just said.
Yeah.
I think he wants to be in Dallas and just realize, Seattle lost a bunch of defensive players. Maybe this can become my team again.
Yeah.
And just came out of the woodwork. And I don't know. I still believe he wants to be in Dallas. I don't buy this one bit.
Speaking of you not buying this, I remember last year Earl Thomas got into an argument with linebacker Bobby Wagner. And Wagner saying something to the point of, don't be mad that this is becoming my team and not yours anymore, or something like that. And so, who knows what Earl Watson's thinking, and he made it seem, based on his actions, that he wants to be in Dallas. What do you think, Gavin?
I think that Earl Watson is wishing that he was relevant in the NBA still.
Earl Thomas.
No, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I think that Earl Thomas, I think this is what he needs to say because he hasn't been traded for yet. And if he does stay with the Seahawks, he needs to be in good graces with the GM, with his teammates, with the fans. Really passionate fans here, there in Seattle. So I think it could be true, but I also think that it could just be lip service. So
yeah.
You don't go and tell another GM to come and get you if you're happy with where you're at. And I think that the loss of all these other players isn't going to help him. I don't know him personally, but it seems like the Legion of Boom were they liked where they were at because they were surrounded by all these other great players. And as all those players start to get shipped away, or leave the Seahawks for whatever reason, I could definitely see him wanting to go elsewhere just because this team isn't what it was before. It's not going to be the same, and unless he has the drive to want to stay on a team and turn it around, I think he's going to want to go elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, maybe it's because of his contract. He is supposed to get paid $10 million this upcoming season, and if the Seahawks cut him, they will only have $1.9 million in that cap.
Yeah.
So basically, I think his agent told him that if he gets cut, he would lose $8 million.
Yeah, that's what it appears to be to me. A little bit of backtracking and the money's out there. I'll play for the Seahawks. He wants to be where he wants to be. Only he knows that. So we can only take him by his word, but we'll see if he is a Seahawk next year. Giants owner John Mara says, quote, "I'm tired of answering questions about Odell's behavior. He knows what is expected of him, and now it's up to him," end quote. The Giants haven't ruled out trading Beckham Jr., and the Rams have made offers on the star wide receiver. Giants GM Dave Gettleman says, quote, "You don't quit on talent." So he obviously wants to keep Beckham Jr. there, but the owner is getting tired of answering questions, and who wouldn't if you got a player getting himself into trouble? Stoyo, you can't think that this is Would you be willing to put up with this kind of behavior out of Odell? I mean, he's certainly a star talent.
I would personally trade him if I was the GM.
Wow.
Not because of what happened off the field with the white substance, but because he wants to be paid over $20 million.
Yeah.
He wants QB money as a wide receiver.
And
he's a good receiver, but he's undersized.
So you think, is it a bad contract or he's not worth it?
Well, he doesn't have that contract yet, but that's what he wants. And I don't think anyone would trade for him with the possibility of having to pay him that much money. Antonio Brown, who's the best wide receiver right now in the league, is getting paid, I believe, $17 million.
Yeah.
And if you want to pay Odell $5 or $6 million more than AB,
you're crazy.
I wouldn't think that he would get that. I mean, I would think that Odell will be perfectly happy just being the highest paid receiver. I'm sure you could work out a contract with him, but I think
he said he wants to get paid in the 20s.
I mean, that's a little bit ridiculous. I mean, I get it. I want to get paid in the 20s too, but I don't know if I don't think he's going to get it. And I would think that a long-term contract, some stability would be more important. Gavin, are you with John Mara on this, that the Giants should possibly think about moving on, or are you with their GM saying you shouldn't move on from a talent like that?
I'm sure that they're tired of answering questions about it, but I don't think that means he's necessarily going to do anything about it. If he is willing to trade a talent like Odell simply because he doesn't like talking about it, then he needs to have a different job, especially in New York. You're going to talk about your star players and when they're in trouble. So that's, to me, it's isn't a sign of anything that's going to happen to Beckham necessarily. But I also I would consider trading him, but I think it's much like Nick Foles. I wouldn't trade him for his market right now probably isn't as high as it could be because of the incident that happened last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, and because people know the GM's tired of dealing with it. So I wouldn't trade him for anything less than what they would have gotten for him a year ago.
Yeah.
Especially with I know that I think they take a quarterback this year. You don't get the opportunity to take if they like one of the quarterbacks. Obviously, I think you take one. It's not often in the NFL draft that you get the opportunity to take a top 2 pick with a team that isn't as relatively good as the Giants are. So I think that you take a quarterback. Eli is aging. He has shown some signs of regression. And so this could be the opportunity to not fall into a slump after you lose your franchise QB. You talk to teams like the Packers and the Patriots and what they the ability to move from franchise QB to franchise QB like that. Same with the Colts. I think that they would say that's invaluable. And so I think that they take a QB, and it would be a shame to have him have no decent. Well, he has some decent weapons, but to not have a star receiver to throw to like they could with Odell.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I just hope that he doesn't go to the Rams. They're already loaded, and they're trying to make offers to bring him there. I mean, it would make sense to see Odell go out to L.A. Seems like a good fit, but the Rams would be ultra loaded if they brought Beckham Jr. out there. Do you think that'd be a smart move for the Rams, Stoyo? If you were the Rams, would you want to bring him in?
I don't think you can afford him.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, for one season, sure.
Yeah.
If you're trying to make a push for a Super Bowl, bringing in Sue and Odell, that'd be great. But long term, I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, and I know that Jarvis Landry was trying to recruit him to Cleveland. They were teammates.
Good luck.
They were teammates at LSU, and it makes for pretty hard to defend. But yeah, good luck getting Odell to go to Cleveland. Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson is ahead of schedule on his rehab and expected to be ready for training camp. So there's some good news for Houston. Um, and then the Seahawks have released their backup quarterback, Trevon Boykin, amidst reports of domestic violence incident with the same girl that he got a DUI with last offseason in their bar accident. So him and her hanging out doesn't seem to be a good fit. The reports are that he might have broken her jaw. So not a good story here, and not a surprise that he was released immediately. That's like strike three for Boykin since he's been a Seahawk. So you can only put up with so much. Last season, the Seahawks brought in free agent quarterback Colin Kaepernick for a visit. Gavin, you see any chance that Kaepernick gets a call here for the Seahawks backup job?
I think there's a chance. I think he's one of the better talents out there at quarterback that's a free agent right now. But I also think that he's in the mix with people like Matt Moore and Blaine Gabbert. So kind of slim pickings out there at free agent. So yeah, I think that he'll at least deserves a call. He's still relatively young, and I think he deserves at least a talking to about it. But I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't get signed. So even in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what happens there in Seattle. Stoyo, what do you think of Kaepernick? You think that he could end up in Seattle this year?
I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
I don't think Cap is ever going to play in the league again. I think once he sued the NFL last season, that was the end of his career.
Yeah.
I think he's a good player. He's a Super Bowl playing QB, and I think he got the short end of the stick. But I just don't see any NFL owner wanting him on the team right now. It's unfortunate, and he would bring a lot of distraction to a team. And how much distraction do you want to bring in from a backup QB?
Yeah, I think that if Kaepernick has a shot to be there in Seattle, it's not going to be anytime soon. I think it would be much closer to training camp or preseason. So we'll see if he gets a job. But I think that it's an uphill climb. Free agent quarterback Johnny Manziel says he will play in the NFL Spring League, and he hopes to get a deal with an NFL team by training camp. Otherwise, he will play in the CFL this year. So he's saying that regardless, he's going to be playing football this year, and seems to be focused and humble in his comeback attempt, trying to do the right things. Gavin, do you see Johnny Manziel being on a team this year?
I don't think so. I think he's too far removed from the NFL to be relevant yet. I think next year could be a possibility if he's serious about his rehab and if he shows any sort of promise in the CFL. But I don't see an NFL team picking him up yet. I think he brings too much headache to a team, especially for someone that even when he did play, even when he hadn't been removed from football, hadn't really shown a whole lot of anything to be excited about, in my opinion.
So if we're saying for this year and going forward, if you had to say one of these two quarterbacks was going to get a job in the NFL, would you say Colin Kaepernick or Johnny Manziel?
I would say Manziel.
Oh, nice. What about you?
Yeah. For the same reason, but for the reasons that Stoyo explained.
Yeah.
I think that there's too much involved, especially with suing the owners. That was the straw. And every year that he's out, same thing with Manziel. But every year that you're out of the league, your chances of being able to come back, I think, diminish. And especially when you sue the owners, I think you really put the kibosh on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they would be open to feeling out both quarterbacks, but one of them hasn't sued the owners. What do you think, Stoyo?
At this point, I think Ray Rice would have a better shot coming back to the NFL than any of those two.
Really?
I mean, good for Manziel for growing up and stuff and doing the right thing, but did he actually grow? I don't know. I don't think so because he's still a short QB and he wasn't that good in Cleveland. If he gained 3 inches the past time he's been out, sure, but maybe the CFL is the better suited game for him. Maybe he can do a little bit of Doug Flutie and play up north and come back in a few years. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and make a bold prediction. I'm gonna say that Johnny Manziel will be back in the NFL as a quarterback. To what extent I don't know, and how soon I don't know. I think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with going to the CFL and proving yourself out there, and you'll get more eyes on you that way, and be able to put out your tape of your plays that you make. And I think it'll be hard for Manziel to get on a roster this year, but go to the CFL and prove your worth. Tear it up in the spring league, and work hard, and who knows what you can do. So,
Cap is the much better player, by the way.
Yeah, Kaepernick has been there before. He's led a team to the Super Bowl. He's had his
destroyed Green Bay in the playoffs.
Yeah, single-handedly he lit Green Bay up, and so it's hard to say on that. The Titans agree to a deal with Blaine Gabbert to be their backup for Marcus Mariota. So they had a piece there. And then coming up on the draft, the 2 hottest quarterbacks everyone's talking about is USC quarterback Sam Darnold and UCLA quarterback Josh Rosen. Rosen's former college coach, Jim Mora, says that the Browns should draft Sam Darnold number 1 and Josh Rosen should go to one of the New York teams. Do you think that, Gavin, do you think this is a diss on by Rosen's college head coach? Or do you think he's doing this on purpose because Rosen would rather play in New York than Cleveland?
I don't think it's necessarily a diss. It could be that he just thinks that he's a better fit. He's not at UCLA anymore. He doesn't need to have that allegiance. So I think this could just be a city fit type of thing. He's not saying he shouldn't draft him. He's saying that he should get picked in the top 5.
Yeah.
The top 3 even. So I wouldn't assume that it's a diss. So I personally wouldn't take it as that. But I know I can see how people would say that because you're supposed to, always back your players and your coaches and that sort of thing. But at this point, the allegiance is not what it once was. So.
Yeah. And would you, do you think that Sam Darnold is worthy of the number 1 pick? Do you think he's the best quarterback available?
Oh yeah, I still think so. We did our rankings last
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I still have Darnold number 1, and Rosen number 2. So.
You know what?
I agree with Jim Mora.
I've actually had a little bit of a change after watching Sam Darnold throw in the pro day. He looks good. His footwork looks good. His arm strength, his arm accuracy. The only thing I can't get around is the amount of turnovers that he put up at USC. In 2 seasons, he had, I believe it was 30-plus turnovers, which is a lot. So hopefully he can cut down on those, but everything else looks quarterback ready. And I think Cleveland would be dumb. It would be so Cleveland to not draft him. And if they're smart, they'll take Sam Darnold number 1 overall. What do you think, Stoyo? Do you think that was a diss? Do you think that Rosen should believe that he's the number 1 pick?
The headline was a diss, but if you read what he actually said fully, it's not a diss.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sam Darnold is the better QB in my opinion, and Josh Rosen is still a good QB. I would definitely spend a top 10 pick on him, but I'm a fan of Mora. He just said what he thought and give his honest opinion, which you don't hear that every day anymore.
Yeah.
And he said that Josh Rosen is going to be a successful QB, so I don't think he threw him under the bus. And yeah, I've been thinking that Sam Darnold is the best QB of this class for a bit now, and my mind hasn't been changed yet.
I have come around on the Sam Darnold. I would take Sam Darnold number one. I've been convinced of that. But I would say this is I would not draft Josh Rosen. Someone will, and someone will draft him high, but I wouldn't touch him. I would take Josh Allen or Baker Mayfield over Josh Rosen.
No way. I
Abs-
would take Lamar Jackson over Josh Allen.
I wouldn't touch Lamar Jackson or Josh Rosen. Is my personal preference. You heard it here first. That's the Alex Leak guarantee.
I wouldn't pick Mayfield in the first round.
Ooh. I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. Not all of these quarterbacks can be hits. Gavin, if I were to tell you that there's only been one running back in the last 3 seasons to get 900 plus rushing yards in each year, who would you say?
Really?
What? That can't be right.
Yeah. There's only one running back has had over 900 rushing yards in each of the last 3 seasons.
I'm going to go with the wild guess here. It's going to be Frank Gore.
You are correct.
Oh, my God.
At over 30. I mean, he's 34 right now. Just signed another 1-year deal. But Frank Gore in his 30s is the only running back doing that. That's pretty crazy. Gavin,
Le'Veon Bell was hurt a couple years ago, wasn't he?
Yeah. See, you think about it and you're like, no way. You're like, no way, because you think Bell or you think Zeke would be there, but he's only been in the league 2 years.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Bell was hurt.
Abdullah has to be up there, too.
Yeah, maybe for 900 total career attempts.
Stoyo throwing the jabs. Yeah. So I can't praise Frank Gore enough. Still doing it at this age.
Yeah, I always bet against him every year, especially lately. But he always produces, except for that one year he broke his hip. The year I traded for him in fantasy football and lost my league because I traded him too much for a guy that got hurt the very next week.
Wow.
But I've always liked Frank Gore in his game. Just didn't like him in 2012 or whatever year that was. Jerk.
Yeah, well, that's what's going on in the NFL this week. Another week down. The NFL offseason continues to have lots of breaking news, lots of storylines. Thanks again for coming on. Thanks for listening. Guys, you have anything you want to add?
No.
Go Bears. Green Bay sucks. Detroit's not very good.
Well, that was a lot less harsh than I thought it was going to be.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. Thanks for coming on, guys. Peace out, everybody.